Namaste everyone. Welcome back. This is live, right? You can hear? Okay. I'll start with the invocation. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaः Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraः Sthirairangai Stushtuvam Sastanubhi Vyashemadevahitಂ yadayuः Swasti na indro vruddhashavaः Swasti nः पूषा विश्ववेदाः Swasti नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः Swasti no brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I will just I'll chant the 8 verses. Om Brahma Devanam Prathamas Sambhabhuva Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta Sa Brahma Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtham Atharvaya Jyeshtaputraya Praha Atharvaniyam Pravadita Brahma Atharvatam Purovachangiri Brahma Vidyam Sabharadvajaya Satyavahaya Praha Bharadvajo Angirase Paravaram Shaunako Havai Mahashalaha Angirasam Vidivadupasannah Papacha Kasminnu Bhagavo Vijñāte Sarvamidam Vijñātam Bhavatiti Tasmai Sahovacha Dve Vidye Veditavye Iti Hasmayat Brahmavido Vadanti Parachaiva Paracha Tatra Pararigvedo Yajurveda Samavedo Atharvavedaha Shiksha Kalpo Vyakaranan Niruktan Chando Jyotishamiti Atha Parayaya Tadaksharamadigamyate Yattadatreshyamakráhyamagotramavarnam Achakshushrotram tadapanīpadam Nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam Yadbhutayonim paripashyanti dhīrāः यथोर्णनाभिसृजते गृह्णते च यथा पृथिव्यामोषधयः सम्भवन्ति यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि तथाक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम् तपसा जीयते ब्रह्म ततो नमभिजायते अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम् लोकाः कर्मसु चामृतम्. So we are seeing verse 8, mantra 8, continuing from the 7th mantra and continuing from the 6th last portion where he said Aksharam Brahma is Bhuta Yonim, the womb of all creation. By saying that, he established a causation, a karya karana, and a relation was formed, saying that Brahman, the Aksharam, is the cause of all creation and making creation an effect, appearance, a product. To say that creation and Brahman are related. Brahman by itself, we saw, is also changeless. And all-pervading, all-knowing. So, how exactly is the creation posited? For all we understand, for anything to come about, there is a change that occurs. One way of seeing creation that is popular, that we identify with our senses, is where the change is seen in the cause. Like when milk becomes curd. Curd is got created and there was a change in the milk. This kind of a causation and creation is very acceptable. But the big feature of this kind of causation is that the product has independent emergence, and though it is made up of the material cause, but thereafterwards it stands in itself subject to change to further create whatever else, another form of creation, but it can never return back to its causal state. This kind of causation we appreciate in life around us, where everything is a cause, whatever is the cause rather, which brings about an effect. That effect further triggers another cause, becomes a cause and triggers another effect, which again becomes a cause for another effect. And the cycle of cause and effect in terms of one changing into another and another changing into another keeps happening. Like the seed into the sapling and the sapling into the tree, but that tree can never come back to its own original seed. It produces more seeds and they again start off a cycle. Is that the kind of a creation? If that is so, that then becomes another school, another darshan of Vedic vision, who would say that creation is entirely separate from Brahman. But Vedanta is saying there is another way in which a creation comes about. And the chief characteristic of that creation is that the cause remains changeless and inseparable from the effect that it produces. And it is identified, or it is characteristic further, is that the effect at some point can resolve back into the cause. So while it is emerged from the cause, because the cause remains changeless, somehow the cause, when the product has emerged, is it also independent? The effect is independent and sustains by itself? No. This cause is the origin, the sustenance, and at some point also the dissolution of creation. Means the effect can return back into its causal state. This kind of a creation, which is in the form of a cycle also, but the cycle is that the creation is held in a potential state in the causal form. The cause has to have the capacity to manifest it. Therefore, the manifested creation is held in a potential state in the cause, like the tree is in the unmanifest state in the seed form. But unlike a tree which cannot return back, a creation is such which returns back to its unmanifest state. And that cycle of unmanifest to manifest to unmanifest to manifest is the only change that is seen. And what supports this change, what nourishes the change, what sustains the change, what enlivens the change, what empowers the change, that is Brahman, remaining itself the Adhishtan and the changeless principle, the holder of the potential, and how it brings about the creation. Then what is the relation of Brahman with creation? Does they get separated like that singular cell amoeba? When it breaks into two individual cells. Is creation going to be like that? No. When the creation emerges from Brahman, held before its manifestation, creation's manifestation, it is in its original form and in the unmanifest state in a potential form in Brahman. Once, eighth mantra is now telling us, once the process of creation has to start, the change starts happening within Brahman. Within Brahman means Brahman alone is. There is nothing outside. There is nothing other. So the potential of the manifestation now begins to emerge in Brahman. Like Shankara gave the example, like when the seed is about to sprout, how it swells up. That swelling up of the seed, it fills up. Just before it is sprouting, it has got a whole lot of activity inside the seed, which we can't perceive from outside. The only change that we can see is that it is swollen up. Chiyate, he says, upachiyate. Brahman as if swells from within. When he swells from within, does he go expansive in more expansive? He can't, because Brahman is all expansive. So there is nothing like saying it has increased in dimension. The swelling up doesn't include the idea of increase of dimension. Like even for a seed, when we say it swells up, we would get the idea that it was small before it becomes big. Is Brahman like that? When mantra 8 says tapasa chiyate Brahma, that Brahma here is Brahman. Through tapas, Brahman expands, swells up. That swelling up is not a dimensional swelling up. It is a way of saying now there is an internalized change in the sense of preparedness. Something is beginning to happen within Brahman without Brahman being undergoing a effective change. It'd be difficult for us to visualize this, except one example that conveys it, and only one that can convey it immediately to us, is in a microcosmic level when we dream, how a dream world emerges from us completely. So, when there is this first stage of the dream, it is always non separate from the dreamer. It is I who's dreaming. It is I who lends the material of the dream. The trees I see in the dream, the ocean I see in the dream, the mountains I see in the dream. Huge mountain. Why mountain? I travel in space and dream. I went to moon. I slept in the afternoon. I went to moon and I came back. I came back in time for the class. Why? Because in my dream, I actually went to the moon. I took the space shuttle. I went through rigorous training, and through that I qualified for a space travel. And I went to space travel, and suddenly I woke up at 5 and I said, "Oh, I have a class." Now the whole earth I saw from moon before I came back here to take the class. Now all of that material that I had in my dream, in the dream, the mountain, the space, the moon, the travel, the feelings, everything that I underwent, the material was my own chittam. What happened to me? Changeless. So while I have seen the whole experience of space travel, while I've had a whole experience of space travel, I have remained changeless. So the dream originated in me, was sustained by me, and when I woke up has got dissolved back into me. So all my spacecraft travel and everything, where is it now? Does it have a physical existence outside? It has gone back into me. It came from me, I lived it, and then whenever the time was up, it's got returned back into me. But in the process, what had happened? There is an I who became the experiencer of this. But I who became the experiencer of the space travel, this I was also the one who was a participatory function or a participatory member of that dream. The one who was a participatory member of the dream was a seen one. The one who saw means himself experiencing the space travel. When I experience this space travel, I see myself experiencing the space travel. That myself experiencing the space travel was a seen me. That seen me did not touch the me in whom the dream came. By whom actually, that as long as I, the fundamental me, is there, it has sustained the dream. As long as the dream experience was to be. It could have been more time, it could have been longer. What determines all this will be how he will say in the verse later on, is my own prarabdha, my own whatever, etc. Now, I had an experience, it began and it ended. This beginning of that experience can be equated to creation. All creation is like that. From Vedantic perspective, that is where Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, makes a different stand completely, allowing us to register that there is another kind of a creation which is also possible in experience. But that creation's distinct characteristic is that it can resolve back into its cause, where the cause remain unchanged, changeless, effectless. Nothing happened to it, and the whole experience could still happen. This kind of a creation is what is the fundamental of Vedantic, Advaitic Vedantic Shankara's vision. And though he has never used the word Maya, etc., in these verses, teachers in between introduced it, and therefore they call what is this ingredient that changes in Maya, in to form the creation. They bring in the word Maya, but for now, if you've heard it before, I'm only supporting that. For now, we can still understand it without this word interfering in the, or rather, we don't need it. All that it means is because this Maya is, I'm sorry, because this creation is inseparable from Brahman, this creation doesn't hold on its own without Brahman. The dream doesn't hold on its own without me. Therefore, the creation that happened in dream of my space traveling and everything, time, space, causation, all experienced in dream, whichever way I experienced it, that entire creation of my dream was Maya Srishti. That which is not. That which is not was the creation that I experienced. Because when I woke up, the whole creation of my space travel dissolved back into me. Brahman is the Karanam of creation, Srishti. Brahman is the Karanam of this Srishti, and Srishti becomes Karyam. But the Karyam and the Karana Sambandha is in such a manner that there is no change happening in Karanam. And Karanam is sustaining the Karyam. And whenever that time is up, whenever there is dissolution to happen, the entire Karyam dissolves back, resolves back from where it came into the Karanam and again in its unmanifest state. So for us, creation means there is an emergence and there is a resolution. Nothing new, never happening. There is nothing new that ever happens. We may say, oh, we have advanced and so much has happened new. Of course, this whole internet world was not there before 50 years. It was not there at all. Well, at least not available to us the way it is available. Who about 50 years ago would have thought that there'll be a Vedanta class across communicable through something called an internet? Nobody would have dreamt of it. So we think it is something new. But the experience of it is nothing that is emerged as new. It has manifested from whatever was potential. That potential alone has got manifested. That potentially held Srishti is called Avyakta. The potential Srishti is Avyakta. That means me, the dream, before I dream anything, entire dream worlds is held in me as Avyakta, not yet specified, not yet manifested, not yet become a specific experience. Limited in time, limited in space, limited in capacity, limited in function, because creation defines certain level of limitation that has come down upon it by terms of becoming a gross creation, by terms of it becoming capable of giving a experience to the experiencer. That grossness that it has come to from its potential state to its manifest state, it has actually grossified. That grossification that has come about in that creation, the distinct element is that it has no hold of its own. And that is a beautiful part which this verse is culminating in terms of a, you can call it a Vedic view in which we see cosmology, how this creation has come about. Some of you who are following parallel Tattvabodha class, you see these two are going so amazingly supplementary to each other that ultimately you realize in Vedanta, the purpose of establishing this Karya Karana Sambandha between creation, creator, and creation is certainly not to verify or to prove it like science would want to prove through physical verification. The idea is to be able to recognize it in its happening as experience. The prabhava and the pralaya of an experience is something that is constantly there. This is what is called creation. And when you look at it from a macrocosmic level, that entire era of one, say, kalpa, because our time is divided from the very beginning, so many kalpas, and each kalpa has so many days of Brahmaji and etc., yugas and chaturyugas and all that huge lineage of time bifurcation. A kalpa begins, and when a kalpa begins, say tapasa chiyate Brahma, means now Brahman is beginning to get ready for the change to happen. I think I gave the example here only last time. When you put your idli dough or your anything to ferment, bread, doklas, etc., when you put it to ferment, that beginning stage when it begins to ferment, it has not yet grown, but the fermenting process has started to occur from within. Of course, limitation of example. Everything will be a limitation of example compared to Brahman and creation. But that aspect, one aspect that is parallel and is conveyed through this example, is the fact that the change is happening from within. Tapas chiyate Brahma. This tapas is what? Not the way we understand austerity in the world. Uniqueness of Upanishads is uniqueness, meaning it is called an Upanishad. It is a Shruti. It is something that can never be changed even in a matra. That is a Shruti. It's a Praman in itself. This, the words when Shruti uses, it doesn't use it in a Laukik sense all the time. It has its own meaning. The meaning of tapas here in this verse, in this book, in the Upanishad is how, say, when you've left your batter for fermenting, the knowledge held within the process of that dough to ferment automatically starts fermenting. If the conditions are right, fermentation will take place. That knowledge of creation, once Brahman is ready for creation, which means Brahman doesn't need to be ready, it's a way of expressing. Once there is kalpa is to begin, means now creation is to start. On what ground is creation to start? He says it'll need knowledge. Creation is not random. There is a whole lot of knowledge that supports the creation. It has got inherent Shakti in it. It has got the power in it. Excuse me. This entire creation, The minute it has to start emerging is the point of saying Brahman is holding potential creation. At that point, there is no creation, nothing. Potential means avyakt, it's not seen. Avyakt is its first stage of now saying that it is going to become manifest. So, the very first emergence of change in the matter from within itself, when it starts to swell, Shankara says, and the Upanishad and the Parampara would say, Sampradaya would say, tapasa here means knowledge, by the knowledge of creation. How is it to create? And where does it get the knowledge from? Just sub commentaries will help us understand. It is to do with past creations. In Brahman, is all creation always there? With reference to what happened in the past creation, past kalpa, etc., he brings about that knowledge. And further, this is something one needs to pay attention. There may be a shift of vision here, but it will fall into place if you follow it. Every creation, when it has to happen, it happens with a purpose. It happens with it is not a pre-planned motive of Bhagwan, but by the previous kalpas living beings, whatever is the karmas they have earned, the karam phalas that those living beings have to undergo, keeping that in mind, the new creation happens. So there is no set standard every time, only the same creation will happen. What determines the nature of creation is the karma phala of the pranis that have to now experience creation so that their karma phala is experienced by them. So the nature of creation that happens is in accordance to the karma phala done by the jivas so far in the previous, up to that previous point, previous kalpa, etc. That makes the possibility of a new creation to happen. That knowledge is the knowledge with which now, as if, I'll say this a billion times, because even if by mistake you take it as a literal thing, it'll be off. It is just a mannerism of saying that as if Brahman has the intention, it cannot have an intention. There is no intention. It is the process automatically. The dough has to ferment if conditions are right. If there are jivas adequate enough and their karma phalas have taken time to manifest, creation will manifest. It happens from Brahman being the supportive, material cause, the intelligent cause. We have seen this in the 7th verse. Inseparable cause from the creation. The change begins. And when that change begins in the first way, very first thing, it is now called Annam. Annam tapasa chiyate Brahma. Based on the experiences that the jivas have to undergo, a creation is now getting modeled, manifested. And that first stage of fermentation, I'm talking as fermentation because swelling takes place there, so it's just a symbolic way of representing it. In Brahman, the first layer or first level of internal change happens. And that internal change is not like the change of fermentation. It is like the change of the dream emerging, allowing me to give me my karma phala. That dream experience is my karma phala. So at a microcosmic level. At a macrocosmic level, the same thing's happening in Brahman. The jivas have to experience their karma phala and a creation has to be provided for it. That provision of the creation, when that first level of change begins to happen, it is called Annam in this verse. Again, Annam in a Laukik sense is not the meaning here. Annam in a Laukik sense just means food. But here, Annam means unmanifest, and it is not completely unrelated to the word food, because Annam in its Vyutpatti means something that is going to be enjoyed, bhogna, something that is going to bhunjate iti, you are going to consume it. So creation means something that is going to be consumed by the living beings in terms of experience. Creation is going to be consumed, is going to be enjoyed, is going to be eaten up, means you are going to be in a creation is called creation, which is going to be a source of consumption. That is called creation. This creation, which is now just about beginning to emerge, means from Brahman. Now, the very first change has begun to happen not in Brahman, but within itself, it's arising. That first thing is the unmanifest state of the final product that's going to come. In itself, now still unmanifest. The creation is still unmanifest. The potential of what is to come about is still unmanifest, and that is called Annam, the very first indicator of creation and its emergence that is going to come about. Then he says, now what happens? As I said, Shankara said in the Bhashyam, this creation is not how we would say, so far science would say, as long as I understand so much, may not much be in touch with it, but if I understood it correctly, supposing you say it's a Big Bang. In Big Bang, it was like one sudden burst, and then it's going on expanding. From nothing came the Big Bang. There was some black hole, and then there's a Big Bang, etc. That's not how creation happens. Shankara says it's not like the badara fruit, the berries that were thrown on the ground and suddenly thrown as if all of them have emerged together. Unmanifest in the fist, you can't see what is in the hand. Oh, what do I have in my fist? What do you want? And then I throw them, and then suddenly the badara fruit berries are revealed. It's not like that. And then suddenly, if they're left to ground, they'll sprout together. It's not like that. Creation has been specified in a very sequential way, which means creation that we call as creation is the process of grossification, physicalization. I call it physicalization. From subtle, imperceptible, uncontactable existence to physical, perceptible, contactable existence. This is the process of creation. And this creation, Shankara says, in Vedic view, is not a sudden burst of all creative material. All beings are not suddenly thrown and now creation has emerged, means all planets and all, everything hasn't just suddenly emerged and there is a creation. The creation comes in step by step. That means how we saw before, milk became curd and curd becomes the cause of another, say, curry, buttermilk. And then buttermilk will become another cause of another thing. How it becomes, one becomes a cause for the other. Once this Brahman has started, the cause of creation will be one leading to another. It will be a sequence. And the important point of mentioning the sequence is, again, because when the sequence is mentioned coming from Brahman to the point of contactable creation, which is now where we are all contacting, the same method is how you take it back to its state of resolution. So when the resolution will happen, it will happen the same way it has come. So the significance of knowing this prakriya is so that you can resolve it back also, or you know how it resolves back also. The same way it has got created is the same way it gets resolved, same steps in which it gets resolved. So Annam, So Annam becomes the unmanifest. From this unmanifest means potential now, but it has become a little. The beginning of the manifestation has started. So from Brahman's standpoint, there is a manifestation beginning, but from creation standpoint, it is still not visible. It is not a visible creation. So it is still unmanifest in Brahman. From that unmanifest state, which incidentally, as I said in another portion, in some other text, I still fail to see where in any place Maya has been used as a word, but in explanation, it just keeps coming about in Vedantic contexts. This is the stage where they equate it to Maya. What you will see in Tattvabodha also, we are seeing Maya, Trigunatmika Maya, etc. But here in this context, I would prefer to not engage the mind with that topic at all because it's not necessary. It is complete in itself. Here, what is said is complete in itself. From tapas, with tapas, Brahman, first stage of change, not in the literal sense, but emergence of a creation has to happen. That unmanifest creation still, but change in Brahman, in the sense of not Brahman changing, but change in Brahman. From that Annam, the unmanifest, the Avyakta still, Annat Pranaha. From Annat means now Annam is going to become the cause for another effect. And that effect is Pranaha. Pranaha again at an individual level we are saying is the 5 pranas. At a macrocosmic level here in the context it signifies the Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha means the unmanifest, subtle state of all living beings, the unmanifest minds of all living beings. He doesn't say mind here still. Pranaha is Hiranyagarbha, the Lord of all subtle abhivyakti that has to take place. It is in the stage of Hiranyagarbha, it is still potential abhivyakti from the standpoint of creation. But from the standpoint of Annam, it has now further grossified. From Annam has come Hiranyagarbha, the total the total pran, Hiranyagarbha. From Hiranyagarbha, now Hiranyagarbha will become the cause. From Hiranyagarbha comes Manaha. Actually, Pranaha and Manaha are equatable. Just one stage before and after, a little more expression of grossification in Manaha, in definition, because Hiranyagarbha is still not a defined thing, but by saying Manaha, it has now said all Sukshma Sharira, collective, Samashti Sukshma Sharira, is actually Hiranyagarbha. So Hiranyagarbha is Manaha. From Annat is Pranaha. Pranaha is another word for Hiranyagarbha. Means Samashti Pranaha. Samashti living beings. Why bring Hiranyagarbha also? Just Samashti living beings. Just Samashti creation that has to come about. Living beings here is the context. From living beings, Samashti living beings potentially held still, comes Samashti Manaha. Means all it is now beginning to take abhivyakti according, because the creation has to come about according to the living beings that have to exist, that have to experience it. So the Samashti Sukshma Shariram is now beginning to form. From this Samashti Sukshma Shariram, Manaha, comes Satyam. And Satyam here is not a value, but Satyam refers to the elements, the 5 Pancha Mahabhutas. These Pancha Mahabhutas, space, air, fire, water, earth, now they have come from Samashti Manaha, having come as now elemental stage, it is ready for further grossification into a physical form. The same elements will grossify now and they become physical elements. These physical elements are called lokaha. Lokas, in the verse you see. Lok means jahan raha jayega, where there is abundance. No? We used to say this as a word, no? Like in Hindi, you say nagar. So lokaha means where you are going, where there is going to be a specification of time and space zone. That is going to now happen. And this lokaha refers to Bhu Adi, Shankara says here, Bhu Adi, Lokaha. Bhu is earth. So earth, etc., have now formed. And what is earth, etc., meaning? All the 14 lokas, earth upwards and earth downwards. And Satyam is the highest of the lokas. Satyam, Mahar, etc., etc., etc. I never remember all of them. I know most of you would know now. All the 14 lokas, one at a time. So all of them have now come about. And once all of them have, means now creation has become physicalized. It's become gross. There is a physical creation ready for contact. With what? Physical creation has never been separate from the individual. Individual is also the created part of it. So this contactable srishti now for the senses has now become a field of experience. And a field of experience is referred to form. My connection again says it's unstable. I don't know why it always happens. In case it gets disconnected, we'll continue next class. I think it's now people are beginning to drop, so probably some instability in the internet. Now, karma su means now the creation is available for karma. Here the living being, and here which living being? Upanishad is talking to human beings. Though creation is available for every living being, it has become an experience zone for all living beings, and according to your past karma, you have the field of experience available to you now. But a human being unique to have the capacity to do karma, and karma in the literal sense, not meaning action, but how karma's actual sense only means Vaidika karma. And those Vaidika karmas are signifying of your capacity to earn punya and papa. Means either way, commission and omission will cause punya, bring about punya and papa. That distinction on which karma to be done by what means once the field has got established in order, field of creation has got established in order, karmas are distinctly made according to varna and ashrama. Only those were called karmas in the Vedic sense. I have said it enough times, even through Bhagavad Gita. Karma, when it is used in some contexts, especially in Shruti, it only refers to Vedic karmas. It doesn't refer to us brushing our teeth and earning money in any form that today it's available to us. Karma means the capacity to do your obligatory duties, which is based on ashrama and varna. Whoever does those, now this becomes the field of punya and papa. And that karma done itself is going to bring about cha amritam, results. These results are here are called amrit. Amrit means mrit, dead. Amrit almost means immortal. Means they have created the cycle of karma again. So punya and papa done has again become the cause which will again give rise to a creation. So who brings about a creation? And it is anadi, because living beings are anadi. Everything is anadi. Brahman is Anadi, Avyaktam is Anadi, and creation is cycle of karma is Anadi. Therefore, from Brahman, now the creation has come down to this physical being who is ready to willfully do his karma and alter his realm of experience by doing his karmas. This creation is all about how does it come about is from his realm of karmasu cha amritam, those immortality that is held in the karma phala, because it can manifest in any kalpa in any time. The fact that there is a karma done will already bring about a field for its exhaustion, karma phal and its exhaustion. So here the point from tapas, it comes down to the result of karma. From tapas means Brahman with knowledge, avyaktam, knowledge of the previous creation and the beings and what kind of creation is now needed for. That is why we also say Brahman. Incidentally, Brahman plus Maya is Ishvara, and Ishvara is karma phaldata. He keeps the record of all the karmas and the phalas. That means whether I know what I have done or not is not important, because whatever I do is already registered. And as I have registered it, so I will need a field of activity to field of experience to live it, live my own earned karma. And that experiential world that has to come about is called creation. And it is not something which is existent forever. It will keep on modifying itself as per the karma phalas. There will be constant change according to the living beings who are doing their duties or not. According to that, creation will keep getting modified. But the important point here, it is an Upanishad. It doesn't want to say how the creation has come about. It is here to say that this creation that you are seeing and experiencing and living as if is actually just an appearance from a Vedantic standpoint. Appearance in Brahman, sustained by Brahman, and resolved back into Brahman. So, if you shift your sense of reality into the creation, then this creation is overwhelming and is a very powerful thing, and there seems no respite out of it for an individual. But why it is an Upanishad is because it says the respite is in Brahma Vidya. So, the minute you know Brahman as yourself, the creator, you're freed of this entire process of experiential being, living being, experiential, limited experiential life. This is what he says in the 8th verse. So, with this, we are finishing this, and the next verse is almost similar to this, but and I think with that, he finishes the first section of this chapter. Yes, and he just will continue with this line of thought. And in a nutshell, the first section would have completed giving the student 3 important points. The first point was the sampradaya, the role of the creator in this knowledge, one that we are receiving, the importance of that. The second thing that he said is the 2 kinds of knowledges to seek. And the third thing he says is this krama of creation, which is going to be now elaborated in the rest of the Upanishad. So this topic will continue, the last portion will continue for the rest of the sections of the Mundaka Upanishad. So we will conclude here. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu, sarvesham shantir bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhave. There was also a request from one of you to also have assignments. So I know a lot of you are not inclined for it, but for whoever is inclined, it is worth it. So after we finish the next verse, just to consolidate the first section, I will form some sort of an assignment. It is not to check right or wrong. One odd time I find that sometimes the understanding is wrong. If an understanding is incomplete, it's okay. But if it is wrong, it is not acceptable or it is to be corrected. So, as I've said, maintained mostly, I will not give feedback averagely. Only if something is to be pointed out as needs correction, then I will reply back. So, after the next class, we'll finish the section and then on the emails, you will get the assignment if you wish to do it. If you're not inclined, please don't worry. Shravanam Mananam is what is required. Assignment is only an assistance for Mananam. That is all it is. But many of you I know are not inclined. You don't have to force yourself to do it. With this, thank you everyone. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you can always send at the email address of the channel, vedanta.vichar with a double A at gmail.com. And definitely, if you find the classes useful, I believe I am to say, do definitely like, subscribe, etc. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day, evening, and week, and life. Harihi Om. Namaste.